All right, Mike, what is going on, my man? Welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. Same old, other than I'm Southern California, so we're dealing with fires and wind right now. But outside of that, which is atypical in the office, where I spend most of my time.
Cool, man. Yeah. We are filming this at the beginning of 2025. So, for those wondering, the fires in Southern California are pretty serious. I am only getting secondhand stuff being in Colombia, but maybe Mike can touch on that later, and hope everyone's okay there. So, Mike, I wanted to start first with content. I mentioned when we first were talking before hitting record here that you were one of the fastest growing people that I remember seeing in the content real estate business space. But also, I will say that, and no offense to anyone else out there, maybe a little, but you also, I felt like, kept a really high integrity brand of like quality information, quality interviews, but also just like the types of content was like very informative. And I feel like people appreciated that. But I guess my first question is, you know, and we'll talk about your background and like business, but when you first started making content, what was the specific reason that you did it? Or was it the outcome that you got very different than the reason that you were making content in the first place?
Really good question. So I started originally creating content due to a past career of mine, which was skateboarding. I was a professional skateboarder who went through the change of having no social media and relying on the magazines and movies to promote me to, grow my brand. And then as we started, tapping into at first Twitter and Facebook, and then Instagram is really what kind of moved the needle for us. I started trying to take as much of that power or control away from the major advertisers and put it into my hands. And so I originally started creating content for my skate career. And then fast forward a few years, I started my first business that was not my current business. It was in the craft beer industry. And we were looking at our marketing budget, which was not big. And we tried to figure out a way to do more marketing for less money. And so we experimented with Instagram in 2011 and ambassador influencer marketing. And that just took off. We saw radical growth through our company. We eventually sold it to Miller Coors. And after that, I was sold on how you can use social media. And two, my framework of how valuable it was went significantly up. I don't think I really realized the power of it until we sold a brand and the whole marketing concept was built off a free platform. And then from there, I started my current business, and my original idea was to use kind of some of our marketing strategies with my last business, which was ambassadors and influencers, and build my current brand, which is a private equity real estate firm, in the same vein. And the challenge I had is when I started reaching out to people to talk about investing and money and their stories, no one felt comfortable doing it. And so I was staring down the barrel of a marketing concept that I couldn't act on, and I kind of panicked and went, okay, crap, if no one's going to do it, I'm going to do it. And it just kind of forced me to become the face and create content around investing. I originally didn't think I was going to do that. It was more originally out of desperation for my company.
Got it. That's awesome. So you mentioned a few things that you do or have done business wise. Even me watching from afar, I knew you were a real estate investor, and you talked a little bit about your background. But I guess could you bring everyone up to speed, I guess, on like what your pie chart of time looks like and energy? And I know there's political stuff in there, and also business, and just then hobbies and things like that.
Yeah, as far as what I'm dealing with in real time right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now I am a husband, father of four. I'm the principal and president of my company, Commune Capital, and I am the mayor pro tem for the city of Thousand Oaks, which basically means I'm the right hand to the mayor for our city. And so my time, by and large, is at the business. So Monday through Friday, I get into my office typically around 7. I'm here usually till about 5. unless I have a city council meeting. So that's kind of part of the one-off. I have a city council meeting every other week on Tuesdays. And then leading up to a city council meeting, I have some prep that I have to do over the weekend. So I would say majority of my time in office, maybe 20 hours or so spent towards city council a month. And then for the family, I get home usually around 5:30 and it's dinner time, hang with the kids, put the little ones down, maybe hang with my wife, go to sleep, wake up the next morning and do it all over again. And then Saturdays and Sundays for me now, I don't work. So that's kind of my time to get caught back up with the family. No work. I don't use my phone anymore. I'm off social media. Those are kind of my 2 dark days to just enjoy the 5 of them.
Got it. Okay. And business-wise, when you think about your time now, I'd be curious to think about how you think about, like, what's the best use of your time in the business, and then maybe we could talk about your team and what that looks like. But I'm sure your role in the business has changed a lot from when you first started, or this started growing a lot.
It has changed a lot, and I feel like each year, not just me, but I feel like we kind of reevaluate best use and potentially tweak some things. In the beginning, it was like all hands on deck. So I was doing a lot of things that were not the best use of my time, that I didn't really enjoy doing. But because of bandwidth and size, that's kind of how all the founders were. It was just whatever needs to get done, we do. And then as we started growing, I was able to bring people in, start delegating a little bit more, and then focusing on the things that are kind of highest impact. And so, now it looks radically different, where 4 or 5 years ago, I was on all the calls with the attorneys. I was building out the investment perspectives. I was raising capital. I was a lot. And now, not so much. I'm not on the calls with the attorneys now. Investment decks are not done by me. Capital raise, I'm still a little bit involved in, but we are building out that side of the business that I want to kind of be removed from. And so today I'm more in the true visionary role. So my responsibilities would be, ideas and where the brand is headed, big relationships I'm managing, kind of culture of the business, and then still involved on capital raise. And then what projects we move forward on, I'm involved in the decision making, but I'm not doing any of the work to present the potential projects. So that's a whole now department that I'm not involved in. And then
Gotcha.
how we're structured. I would say the only other thing I would add is probably the biggest change for me over the last 5 years has been moving me more into the face and the content role more and more. So I'm spending a lot of time now on content, more so than I was the year before and then the previous and the previous. And I have a feeling next year and the following years, I'll just see that continue to play out.
Gotcha. Okay, that's awesome. What does your team look like now, as far as like who you communicate with most often and just like your business team structure?
So we have right around 19 or 20 full-time employees. I have a C-suite of CIO, COO, we have a chief compliance officer, a CFO, more of the kind of conventional structure. And then it's from there, we have a sales team, we have a marketing team, we have admins, asset managers, analysts, and controllers. And then we have people that are responsible for overseeing all the actual real estate that we're building, not just the asset management of the stabilized projects. Who I'm in communication with the most would probably be my COO and my integrator. Those would probably be the 2 that I'm in communication with the most. And then my assistant is like, that's full time.
You mentioned integrator. Are you guys using EOS, something like EOS? Like, what are you using for business systems?
We do. We use EOS. It's actually something that we rolled out about 10 months ago. We brought in an implementer to help us basically bring it into the company. And then we just rolled it out to the company a few months ago. So from a leadership standpoint, we've been using it for about 10 months. And then from a total team, it's been new and it's been game changing. It's something that I wish we would have done a long time ago. I really enjoy what we're starting to see happen just as we've rolled it out in the short interim of time.
For those that don't know what it is, can you maybe just give like a high level on it, but then maybe anything tactical that you guys have implemented from it?
Yeah, good question. So the EOS system was created mainly from the book Traction. And what it is, it's a system for business to, I believe, create the correct structure of skill set, and then the system that tracks what you're responsible for, which puts you in a position where it's like full transparency and accountability. So you actually see your company moving forward on the highest return items. And then in that, they have their structure, right? You have the visionary, you have the integrator, and then you have, the different departments of your company, and then who has ownership throughout that. And so what I found is, for me being the visionary, my personality is I am not creating systems. I am not managing efficiency. I am the furthest thing from an operator. Every business I've ever started, the COO or the operator is typically the first person that I look for, because for me, it's ideas, it's energy. I am very good at getting people rallied behind what I want to do and driving them forward. In a lot of cases, I feel like we can go through walls together, but that energy is wild. It is not efficient and streamlined. So for me, the structure of having the integrator fine tune what basically I'm trying to build out and then do it in an efficient way is huge, because, if you're like me, the curse that we have is too many ideas and chasing too many shiny objects, which could be or is detrimental to any type of real growth. So it was a game changer. I absolutely love it. I wish we would have done it a long, long time ago.
So I have a few questions around this. Like a lot of times I'll talk to people and they'll say, I need an integrator. I'm a visionary. And I don't know, on one shoulder, I'm thinking like, this person is just like, maybe they think they do, or maybe they heard they did, or maybe they don't want to do a lot of work, and like they, can or can't do the other part of it. But then in real life, like people that are good at sales and marketing and content and developing relationships, like they are really visionaries, and they're just not detail oriented people. So, I have a question behind this, but I guess when you think about like how you best interact with an integrator, like how do you think about it so that they feel valued, but also that like, they understand you have your part to do, and you guys can collaborate to bring things to a different level?
So the integrator type that I have always had, whether it was this business, the last business, the campaign that I ran with city council, they all typically fit a personality framework, which is not usually extrovert. It's usually task oriented and management first. And so, going back, thinking of the integrators, if I told them, I need you to present an hour-long keynote about, interest rates and cap rates in this market, and you're going to present it in front of 300 people. That would take them hours and hours of preparation. They would hate every bit of it. If they got to the point of even actually presenting it, after that, they would be exhausted and useless probably for the next day or two, right? For me, I'll do that in my sleep. I'm excited about it. I'd walk off stage fired up, ready to go, right? So I think it's important to know that the extrovert and the introvert have, in a lot of cases, a relationship that works super well together, front-facing and back-facing. I would say the part you brought up about laziness, I don't know if it's so much laziness, because if I'm using me for the example, I will do it. I just am not good at it. So when you look at something like, let's say, an investment summary, right? I can design it out, I can do the pro forma, but that's going to take me 10 to 20x the amount of time that it would putting the right person in place. And then the amount of additional bodies that would have to oversee my work to fix all of the lack of detail that I have is tremendous. So then you're looking at at time management at that case, and it is the worst use of all of our time if I'm doing activities like that. And so in the beginning, you usually don't have a choice. Like creating an integrator and a system and a team in the beginning is only done if you raise capital, typically for the growth of your firm. If you're not doing that, then yeah, there's no way around it. You're doing the things that you suck at.
So, as you were saying it, I think what I realized is a lot of people, the people that they look up to are maybe more famous that are known visionaries, so they want to be that. So I guess I just meant that I hear or have heard people say it from a place like their business is really small and there's not even anything to integrate yet, but like they may not like doing the work. So to your point, like you can be on the side of the business you like doing and that you're also good at, which brings the highest value. So that's just a really important clarification you made. One other thing that you mentioned, or just like through multiple businesses, it sounds like you've had 3 or 4 type integrators. So the other thing that is really common I hear and you see out there is like I can't find an integrator. I can't find someone that I don't know works as hard as me or that like is it can be more than an EA. And you have an EA and an integrator or COO. It sounds like. So could you maybe just high level start with how you found or find those people typically, and then I guess how you bring them up?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about that, but I just don't let me forget this point of I can't find somebody that works as hard as me, because that's
I'll make a note.
okay. So as far as how I find people, um, my EA, I found her because I was looking for a campaign manager on the campaign I had to run, and the campaign manager had an operator tied to him. And she came on and she was so phenomenal that after the campaign, I looked at her and went, "Anyway, you want to work for me?" And so she did. So that was just I was introduced to her, had a great experience with her, and then I tried to move her into, what I was doing full time. My current COO, I met through a business partner. He was a financial advisor. And when I met him, I just saw something in him, right? I think with integrators, when you've been doing this long enough, it's very easy to pick up on, who's who in the organization. And so I just saw a talent in him. I built the relationship with him. I got to know him. And then I took a shot and tried to pull him in. And when I did that, I made him a partner of the firm to get him over here. The integrator that we had with the brewery was somebody that we had a relationship with in the surf industry and pulled him over. So I guess all that to say, when you start doing something for long enough, you just start meeting people. And when you're doing the next venture, I start by going back into my network and knowing or maybe figuring out who's who and if that person is capped or tapped out in their industry. And I try to pull them over and bring them into the new thing I'm doing. And, I think every single time it's been bringing them into upside of the organization or as a partner so that it makes it worth them leaving their stable career and into something that's a little bit more high risk.
That's awesome. I do want to mention the note that you said before about not finding people that can work as hard as you also.
Yeah, so on that one, to me, it's been having to readjust my expectations on who's, let me think of the better way to say that. I had to readjust my expectations of what people are willing to do in comparison to me and kind of reduce the bar a little bit. And so this is what I've learned. One, if you're the founder and the leader of the business, you're never going to find anybody that's willing to do what you're doing. It's you can't put it pair or pursue. And so what I found is, one, if you bring people into the company and they own something, you're going to get more out of them than maybe just a full-time employee. Secondarily, if you are creating a culture that people are enjoying and you pair that with upside for them to grow, you're going to get a more engaged, more willing team. And so I'll give you kind of a real life example of this. We're going through a pretty big growth moment as a firm. And in that means way more work and responsibility for our current team. And so as we were looking at 25, 26, 27, and the ramp up of deals that we're doing, we as partners went, how do we avoid burnout for our team? And so we created a kind of team participation program where we carved out 10% of the GP of all the deals we're doing, and our entire team is participating in that 10%. So that as we take on more deals, the team's not looking at it as, great, you guys aren't paying me enough to take on this type of bandwidth. But when everybody's like, wait a minute, I own equity in all these deals, and here's my potential to grow my wealth. Yeah, give me more deals. It becomes a different game. And I found that to be very, very beneficial.
That's really cool. I guess on that note, is there anything regarding comp plans that you see people make mistakes with? Or is it that they just don't do those sorts of things? And I guess the audience, a lot of people are in real estate, maybe smaller than you, but growing a portfolio, bringing either VAs on or EAs, or they run a service business that maybe they're looking to bring on an integrator, or they want some maybe just, I don't know, thoughts on how to get more buy-in from their team. It could be something like a profit share, carve out, something like that. But I don't know, anything that you see business owners making mistakes with that maybe they could implement, similar fashion.
I would say one of the biggest challenges you see is when you're hiring with a large portion of business owners, they're reluctant to hire somebody that's more capable than they are, because there's this fear that they're letting go of control and they're kind of gonna outshine them. That's one major flaw. I think when you're hiring, you have to bring on somebody that is vastly beyond you. That's the point, right? I would say the other challenge is it pertains to upside, right? Like when you're looking at how to pay somebody, you're typically looking at market value. What is everybody else paying? And for some roles, they are going to hit a ceiling, right? And that's kind of to be expected. But with others, when we're hiring, I'm typically trying to find people that are looking at me going, what's my long-term ability to grow here? Like, is this it for me, or do I have a pathway to continue climbing? That's music to my ears. I want that. And so I try to, when I find somebody that is or has the ambitions to go further and has the skill set and output to match that, I'm trying to not limit them from sitting in the same position for too long. Once they're ready to move up, we're trying to move them up. But I would say when people are participating in upside, that's the most powerful thing I've seen. So a lot of companies will do, their 401k or a 401k match, and, we have that as well. That is not the same. Most employees look at their 401k as fake money that doesn't mean anything. And so what we found is equity in the business or some type of participation in the projects, it's perceived as much more valuable.
100%. That's really good. Just a lot that people can go back and rewind and listen to there and just think about. Even if you just look at whatever your situation is and you just think, how can I get, or make life better for these people, or create some type of more buy-in or just ownership in the business. It could be tiny, but just like, it's amazing what happens when you do that. So really, really good point.
And I would say, think about it through your lens. If you were working somewhere, you didn't like showing up, it wasn't exciting, you're making the same amount of money you were 10 years ago, it's not enjoyable, right? And so I just try to find ways to solve that. And so I think having an environment or a culture that is fun, that people like coming to work, you have to have that. Like if you have that, you're gonna have a leg up on other people. And then it just becomes upside. Are you capping people, or are you giving people a path to grow? And so the bigger challenge becomes you're gonna have people that are ambitious, that unfortunately don't work hard, or maybe are the wrong person, period, or right person, wrong seat. So not everybody actually has a pathway who wants it. And I think in those circumstances, what I found is be pretty fast at addressing that. And if somebody doesn't have a pathway, tell them, and you might have to let somebody go or put them in a position of finding something else that might benefit them better down the road. it just always feels crappy to do that. So most people avoid it.
100%. And it's usually the thing that we need to do, but of course it's hard, so it's easier to
Yeah,
put off.
that's right.
Something we've talked about a lot on the show, and even just amongst my friends and masterminds I've been in, is like the hiring model. So what I mean by that is to go hire an agency first, bring someone on that then learns from the agency, kind of like the Alex Hormozy model. If you're familiar, he kind of talks about that. Or some people, bring on a specialist straight away, and they hire them as a full time, or they try to learn it themselves well enough so that they can manage or train, a new hire or an agency. It could be, for content. It could be for anything. But I guess for you and your business, do you have any like thoughts or comments on that, or have you messed around with agencies, or do you guys just try to hire in-house straight away? Just curious how you guys do it.
We've tried it all. We've tried it all. And so I would say where we are now, we've used companies to help basically source leads when we're trying to fill a position, and we have hired people, and it's gone well, but it's a little bit pricey. On this last round, we did everything through LinkedIn and my social media. And so that brought in a huge influx of people. And then it's just on you, on your process, when you're interviewing to find the right people. On that one, for us, we typically do 3 interviews. I'm typically on the last interview once it's gone through the first 2 stages with my COO. And then, once we engage, at this point, I'm trying to find somebody that already has the developed skill set, and that we're just bringing him into our maybe culture and our systems, but it's less of a development than what we've done in the past. A lot of times we've tried to just build people up ourselves, and you have the opportunity to have somebody who's like locked in on the back end, that's like a superstar, but it does take a lot of time and energy to get to that point, and not everybody ends up where you want them to be. So I think I'm at the point now where I want people that know what they're doing, and I can just fine tune their already created skill set. When it comes to like outsourcing, there's a part of this business that we outsource, and then there's a part that we do in-house. So something like our paid advertising on the content schedule, we outsource. I don't have any desire to build out that portion of the team. The other thing, when you're in an industry like mine, there's fees that the fund or the syndication can pay for that your actual business does not. And in real estate, like, we picked an industry that's like cash poor and equity rich. And so you're so mindful of where revenue goes that if you have full-time employees, your company or your management company is paying for that. Where if you're doing advertising or accounting that's being paid by a third party, the fund can pay for that. So there's ways to structure your business that are a little bit more efficient from a revenue standpoint that I've found is very beneficial. But then on more of like I don't know if it's principal approach or holistic approach, I think the best thing is if somebody has a business and they're unbelievable at their paid advertising, great. Here's the fee. Go be great at that for me. That saves me from having to build out a department on my firm. So we're mismatching, or we're not mismatching. We're piecing it together with some outsourcing, and then we bring it in-house when we need to.
Gotcha. I guess this is sort of a selfish question. I'm curious your opinion. For me, even in like a business where I'm considering giving equity or some profit shares or changing my incentives a little bit. The business that I started last year was staffing, and then more specifically bookkeeping for like S&B real estate investors, like 2 to 25 units, let's say.
Okay.
And it's so important that the bookkeepers that I hire are bought in. And also, like, because the model, it's like a staffing model. I'll hire one bookkeeper, train them with my CPA or my bookkeeper that like is leading the team, and then they'll service, let's say, 10 clients. Okay, so if they leave for any reason, that's 10 clients that then we're sort of scrambling to backfill or bring on another person for. What we've sort of solved for that operationally is we keep a floater bookkeeper like that can help with backfill tasks, cleanup, and just like overflow, and just giving more support so that if someone does drop or gets sick or needs to leave or whatever, they can fill in and just kind of step into the system. But I mean, there's the simple ways of just, year-end bonuses and things like that. But I'm curious if there's anything you would think of, because when someone leaves or they don't make it for a year, it causes, a lot of just wrinkles in the business and the unpredictability. So just curious if you had any advice for me, just operationally or comp plans or just anything come to mind on how to improve that system.
Yeah, it's disruptive when they leave. Look, bonuses are great. That's typically not enough to stop somebody from leaving once they feel like what they're running, they can move over into their own business. And that's typically what happens, right? Like if you've got somebody who's doing the accounting for 10 operators and they're the ones in communication, they're the ones performing, it's not that hard for them to make a call and go, hey, I'm going to do my own firm. Do you want to come over? Financial advisors deal with this all the time, right? And so I would say you have a couple options. One, I would look at bringing them into like a profit share of all the accounts that they're running. Or, I have a partner that created something like this that maybe you could look into, that when you bring somebody on and let's say they get through the amount of time for you to figure out if you have somebody capable or not of actually running a book, and then create the business with them, right? So maybe if like you have one guy that's managing 15 and you would pitch this from the beginning, go, hey, once you get to this point, we're going to start a business together, put it in writing prior, and then you float the upfront capital to start it, become 50-50 partners with him, and then just do that over and over. That could be a way to do it.
That's interesting. So it's like on each pod of 10, there's alignment or interest that they know that, there was work to find those clients and market and all that, but then, fulfillment is a different part of it.
Yeah, so like I had a partner that structured a financial advisory business this way. Like when he had a new advisor, he would go, okay, we're going to start a business together. I'm going to pay your salary for the first, let's call it 2 to 3 years as you go out and build clients. We're going to own the business, whatever the percentage split is, and then you're going to take, X amount of the revenue until you're made whole, and then there's a profit share. And he would just do that over and over because most advisors didn't own their book. They just were paid a percentage of let's say, AUM or percentage of the fees. And that's how he navigated to get buy-in. So maybe there's a structure like that, but I would say let the people operating your system, or, in this case, your book of clients, feel like if they go out and manage more, they make more, participate more of the profit share. That's going to keep them. If you don't get that, this is what you're up against. The second somebody else offers them more, they're going, or the second that they feel like they could take your group and move it into their own business, they're gone. And so you've got to give them a reason to not do that.
Yeah, 100%. Really good. I think it's something that also, it's like the reason I've been hesitant to do it is sometimes with these changes, they're like, one-way changes that if you change, they're hard to undo. Like,
Yeah.
It's easy to pay someone more, but then if something changes, backing out of that doesn't really work, but expectations on the front end make a big difference. So that's a good
And I
point.
think, look, there's opportunities to do, like, don't give them all the equity at once. Have some type of vesting schedule. Give them, dude, when I was a skater, I would try to negotiate deals where I got a percentage of the profits, right? Like, that's something that doesn't mean they own equity in what you're doing forever. If you end up letting them go, they're no longer participating in the profit share. Like, there's ways to structure it that aren't so binding or so difficult to unwind. That's going to kind of, I think, be on you to figure out, what the best path is and what you can get people to buy into.
100%. Cool. Changing gears here a little bit. I know you have a lot going on business-wise and political and family. Where do you see yourself going in 25? Is it more into development? Is it value add? Is it some other type of real estate play? Where are you thinking and focusing and kind of trending towards?
Good question. So the majority of real estate we do is development or adaptive reuse. The adaptive reuse is typically what we do on the storage side. So we'll buy a big box retail, like let's say a Kmart or a Walmart that has gone vacant. And like to keep it very simple, we keep the structure and we fill the inside with a bunch of storage units. On the multifamily side, it's scrape and build. So it's a lot of development. For 2025, we have a handful of things that we're rolling out. We have some projects under contract right now that will be going through a staggering closing throughout the year that we're going to be raising capital for. Those are by and large all multifamily. And then other than that, we are working on a affordable housing fund that's going to tap into a program in LA that is a streamlined entitlement and permit process that gets you through the finish line in a fraction of the time. We'll build out an initiative with that. And then last, can I announce this? I can't, you know what? I got to keep this one really broad. My apologies. We're going to be rolling out an offering for investors that is different than anything we've ever done in the past, where more people will be able to invest with us. And so we have a busy year. We have about $150 million of real estate deals in front of us for 25, which is about a $70 to $75 million capital raise for the year. So we'll be raising a lot of capital. We have the deal flow in front of us, and now it's just executing on it.
What do you feel like is the hardest part of the business for you? Either like business in general or like your part in it. If it's raising money, if it's sourcing deals, dealing with California legal things, like, and causes you stress.
Okay, it's a great question. Look, business is business, so it's all hard. I would say in real estate specific businesses, and then maybe going like niche into my business, the hardest things for me are like compliance. I'm in like one of the most heavily regulated industries in the world. That's challenging and frustrating. The dynamic between deal flow and capital is always a frustration. And typically how it works is when there's a lot of deals to go get, there's no capital. And when capital's everywhere, there's no deals. So you have people often referring to the chicken and the egg scenario, which I absolutely hate. I'm sick of hearing people say it. If anybody just wants to know, I've decided on the chicken always. I'm going after the deal. I'll raise the money second. I had to pick one. I feel like that's the best way to do it. Right now we're in a scenario where there's deal flow. Capital is the part that's harder to get. So I would say for our business, we're turning down a lot of deals, and we had to build out the infrastructure and the team to help raise capital because that's the harder part of our business right now. And then I would say last, the function of real estate firms generating their revenue on the front end through fees and how limiting that is makes it really difficult to grow real estate firms. You do participate on the back end through your profit share, your carried interest, which is where the money is. But when you're trying to build something, it's too far out and it's too on the back end that you typically are forced to look at what you can get now. And so growing companies like ours are hard. And then I would say the last part that does tap into compliance or regulation, they make it so difficult for you to build a sales team because of the regulatory body that I've never experienced anything like this. I've never experienced having to build a business and the regulators basically saying, do it without a sales team. You're like, how is that possible? So that's been a frustration of mine for a long time.
Is that like for doing investor calls and there's just things that they can and can't say, and it's because it's, I forget the type of investor that it is only, but
accredited investor. Yeah. So basically this is going to be a little bit broad, but the SEC will not let you pay people to raise capital. There are a lot of companies that do it anyway. There is some gray in that, and depending on the company and if they're comfortable in there, some choose to do it. For us, we just didn't. And so what it means is you have to either buy a broker dealer or operate through a broker dealer, which is then licensed individuals, and it's very heavily regulated. And so that was kind of frustrating to figure out. And it's very limiting to do so as well. So where we ended up going, we started hiring or working with the BD, and then for people that are coming on to help us raise capital, they're licensed now. And what they can say is very limited. And so that's what we had to do.
Interesting. Wow. Did not know that. Even having syndicator friends, I just did not know that. I guess now when I think about it, they really are the face of like the raises, either on their webinars or just like conversations, or they just have an in-house like investor relations person that is their sort of quasi salesperson, I guess. I just didn't know that.
And so now I'm going to take this opportunity to do a little bit of venting, right? This has been where I've been for the last 8 years, is because you can't raise a sales team, the principals are basically forced to start raising capital. And so when you think of having to build a business that could ultimately run without you, how do you do that when you're in the trenches, not only pitching your investment, but all the follow-up? It's a full-time job. And so then you end up finding yourself working in the business, not on the business, which is a big concept from EOS. And that is going to be very limiting for your company. And so I've got to the point where I've been so involved in capital raise that, me being at the top or in the visionary in the sense of like, where is this company headed? I've kind of neglected that because the capital need was so great, and it's me and my other partner raising the money. And so that's been a big initiative this year. And so we have a full sales team now. We're actually hiring 2 more people for it. And then that will finally put me in a position of not being so involved in that. And I'm looking forward to that. There's an element of the business that I'm in now that was very different than my last one, because my last company, I raised money to start the brand. And so we were able to hire right away. This one, growing it off cash flow, that's a whole different type of monster that I didn't have any experience in until I started this one.
Okay, a bunch of things I am thinking, but I guess
that was just unpacking the venting set.
So like, I guess I'm thinking back to content, and like, like I said, I have a few really close friends that are syndicators. They're not as like well known. Like they raise in different circles in New York, kind of like through golf and country clubs and like smaller circles, and they don't have social media presence. But something I remember, like when I even just read like Joe Fairless's book, or like other stuff on syndicating, Brandon Turner stuff, just like what Joe I remember saying vividly was he would always like have this battle between having his face be the brand, because then it's who the investors want to speak to, and ultimately the buck stops there. So like he has made a concerted effort to change like his real estate business, or like I'd say remove it from his personal brand, and now more of just like having a real estate PE company. Is that something you ever think about? Or if you do think about it, like how do you think about it? Because you still make content, your content's awesome, and you have a huge following, but it's like if people come in through that platform, I'd imagine like they want you, and like they think they're getting you.
What's your friend's name that you gave me the example of that?
Joe Fairless.
Joe. So yeah. Joe and I took different approaches. Okay, so he's not wrong, but the way that I look at it is I think your brand has so much more potential value when you have a face, especially in today's time. And so probably the greatest example I could give you would be Elon Musk, right? I've had a Tesla now. I've had 3 Teslas. I'm not sure I'm going to get out of Teslas. I love the car, but I've always been like into him. Like he has been one of the biggest factors on why I ended up buying a Tesla, because I like what he's doing and want to continue to support him, right? There is buy-in, and there is an ability for your consumer or your investor to resonate with your company in a way that if you don't have a face, they just can't. And we have historical data to support this, right? Like if you're an 80s baby, Why did you buy Nikes? Because of Michael Jordan. It was the singular reason why you bought Nikes, was because you'd put them on your feet and you felt like you could run faster, jump higher, your legs were split and your tongue was out. That's how it is. And so to me, I don't think it's a question of should you have a face or should you not. To me, it's more how do you do it correctly, qualified by if you're going to build something to sell it and the business is entirely based on you, that is a risk in a buyer's eye. So you've got to figure out some things. On the investor relation part of it, what I've done is I am the face of my business, but I am not the only source of communication when it comes to my business. And how I communicate is in a position where you can go at scale. So this is how I'll bring it all home on like a real life example. All of the content basically is me. So I create the far and wide net for people to connect. Then they find one of the things I'm doing, which is my company, and then they're going to still see the face of it. But as they start going through communications, I'll be on the webinars. On the investor updates, it's not just me. On the investor updates, it's me, it's Jerry, and it's Michael. So now you have 3 people involved in all the key information that the investor is going to get. When we're doing newsletters or letters that come out through the company, I make sure that I'm not the singular voice, that there's a handful of people from leadership that they're communicating with. And then when you move somebody in the process of onboarding to become an investor, here's the important part. If you're the face, you typically end up walking them through the whole process, right? They say, yes, great. Here's the onboarding. If you have any questions, hit me up. Then they hit you up. And then you go through the mistakes that they made when filling it out. And then they have questions, they hit you up. That's a key part to create the right system. And so what we do, if I'm talking to somebody that I meet in this example with your friend Joe on the golf course, and they go, bro, I love you, I want to invest with you, cool. Tomorrow morning, I'm connecting you with Tawny, and she's going to send you a link through onboarding. And then if they hit me up with a question, it's, Joe, I'm connecting you with Tawny. She's going to handle the whole process. Any question you have, you're in good hands. She's going to handle it. And so from that point on, I'm removed from the onboarding process. And then in the investor relations communication, that's somebody else that they don't hear from. But I will give them the opportunity, if they speak to our investor relations, if they go, hey, you know what? I've got a big question. I would like to speak to a principal. Then we're going to open ourselves up for that. But we are not the only source of communication. You have to structure it that way.
100%. It's more of a skills issue, I think, when people don't, where they just maybe lack the skills or communication to like either find the right people to then take over for them, or just like the communication skills of being able to comfortably tell someone like, I'm not the face, but you're in better hands than even if I was, or I'm not the person to go to on this. Like, this person's better than me.
That's so true. But this is the interesting part. The way we feel is completely counter to the reality of the situation, right? Like, if you're somebody like me and let's say you're the face and you're out there raising money, when you're raising money, you feel like if someone has a question that you are pushing off to somebody, or you're not the one walking them through the whole thing, you feel like they're going to view you as either not as talented as you are, or by you giving it to somebody else, you're running the risk that they're going to eventually say no because it's not you driving it forward. You'll make up a whole bunch of reasons why it's not right to do it this way. But what I've found is when you're speaking to larger investors or business owners, they know better than anyone how to build a business and scale it. And so if you're somebody who's like, let's use the example of somebody that gives you backlash, right? I'm like, hey, Joe, I'm going to push you over to Tawny. She's going to help you with the onboarding. You're in good hands. There's our investor relations. If Joe goes, Mikey, what's up with that, man? Like, I thought you were the guy, and I thought I was supposed to talk to you. I don't know, man. I'm having second thoughts. That's then your opportunity to I think keep your kind of alpha frame and go, Joe, look, man, I've been building business for 20 plus years. If you're investing in me and you think I'm doing all the work myself, I'm telling you right now, don't invest with me. That's an inexperienced, very small operator that will never build anything significant. And if that's what you're looking for, like a DIY type of investor, I'm not that. I'm never going to be that. And dude, go there. Like let it be known that that investor should not invest with you. And then what I would qualify it as, but if you're looking to invest in not just me, but my 20-person team with 30 years of experience and 20 years of track record and this many assets, this is what you get. And so you've got to be comfortable telling somebody no and really get comfortable telling them to go elsewhere if you aren't what they're looking for.
So good. People could just literally use that as a script. And also, though, just so good. I know we're at time. So, we'll link everything, your company, your socials, but what's the best way for people to follow you or learn about your deals or just, how do you like to direct people?
Okay, so I'm on all the platforms. So whatever one you like the most, you can find me there. It's just Mikey Taylor. Hopefully TikTok lasts long enough that if that's your platform, we're still all there. The company is called Commune Capital. You can go to our website. Commune Capital is on all the social medias. You can get access to our deal rooms or just shoot Commune or myself a DM. If you're going to send me a DM, the only thing I'm going to ask is a little bit of grace. I have a lot of messages coming in. So depending on the thing I post, if hundreds of DMs float in, I'm going to miss some, unfortunately. So if I don't answer, try to send me another one. I try to spend a good amount of time each day responding to people. And then other than that, that's probably the best shot. The only other thing I'm going to ask, we have a podcast called Life with Mikey. It's on Apple and Spotify. We talk about everything that we just covered today. Investing, entrepreneurship, some politics, but not kind of tamed down a little bit. I would appreciate the follow if you want to go into more of our long form content around what we're doing.
I will check that out myself and be linking that below. And yeah, in general, your content's great. And you've had a few that I've seen over the last few weeks that just like ripped, like that Hawk Tua video. And then some interviews you did with, forget his name, the hotel.
Rich Sommers. I'm going through a big bump right now. I had the Hawk Tua video go mega viral. It had got about 50 million views total on all the platforms. And then it's just been followed up with just viral moments. And so I've grown a lot. And, you brought up something. I'm going to touch on this if you don't mind real quick.
Go for it.
You were asking about content in the beginning, and I appreciate the compliment on quality content and trying to kind of create a more high-level brand. And it's interesting because when I go back to that time, I didn't know much about social media, believe it or not. I was using it as a pro skateboarder, but I was already a famous pro skateboarder. So I had people following me without me really having to do anything but post. And so when I shifted over and had to build a new brand in new industries, I was hit with my content not engaging because I didn't know how to create content correctly. And I had an audience that was following me for skateboarding, not what I was doing now. And so this is, I think, going to be valuable for anybody who wants to create content. In the beginning, the only thing you're thinking of it is, if I put value in my content, it's going to perform. And it actually doesn't. And so what you have to think of is, how do I add value simultaneously getting somebody to stop and watch my content? And so anybody wanting to get into it, I'll just give you a quick framework. You got to stop somebody in the first 2 seconds. If you don't, all the value that you put in that video is meaningless because no one watches it. And then focus on value after that. Those first 2 seconds are everything.
So true and so insane. And you've done it without rented Lambos and bullshit. So that's even more of a testament. And, as a guy. So that's awesome. Mike, thanks again. We'll link everything, and yeah, hope everyone goes and checks out the content, the podcast, and just keep crushing it. And excited to watch more of it in 2025, my friend.
Oh, I appreciate this. Thanks for having me.
You got it.